I sit on the couch staring at the television without really seeing anything. The soft glow flickers across the room, but it only deepens the shadows in the corners of my mind. I hear the faint murmur of my husband's voice from the other room, talking on the phone. Again. For months, there has been a distance between us, a growing gap I could never quite explain. It feels like he has been slipping away from me, inch by inch, and I have not been able to catch him. It started small. He would forget to kiss me goodbye in the morning or cancel dinner plans at the last minute, citing work emergencies. At first I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We had been together for 7 years, married for 3. I trusted him completely. But there was a shift, something subtle yet undeniable. The first real crack appeared one evening when he came home late, much later than usual. His explanation was simple. He had been out with friends. But his eyes did not meet mine when he said it, and something in the pit of my stomach twisted. I told myself not to overthink it, that I was imagining things. But over time, those late nights became more frequent. He would tell me he was at work or with friends, but his excuses felt thinner with each passing week. I remember the first time he changed his email password. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and I saw him type it in. It was different from the one he had used for years, the one we both knew. When I asked him about it, he laughed it off, saying it was for security reasons. "Everyone changes their passwords," he said. "You should too." His voice was light, but his eyes were guarded. Then came the phone. He started keeping it on silent, never leaving it out of his sight. He would take it with him into the bathroom, something he had never done before. When I asked him why, he shrugged, saying it was nothing. But I knew. I knew deep down that something was wrong. It became harder to ignore the signs. He began spending more time with his friends, more time out of the house. When he was home, he was distant, distracted. He would bring up old arguments out of nowhere, as if trying to deflect attention from the present. Conversations that used to flow easily now felt forced, stilted. The laughter we once shared had been replaced by uncomfortable silences. One night, after another argument over something trivial, he told me he wanted a separate bank account. "It's just for convenience," he said, but the words felt like a punch to the gut. We had always shared everything. The idea of separating our finances felt like another step toward separation, a wall he was building between us that I could not tear down. I did not confront him right away. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overreacting. But the doubt gnawed at me, growing stronger with each passing day. I started watching him more closely, paying attention to the small things. The way he would glance at his phone when he thought I was not looking. The way his tone would change when he answered certain calls. He became more secretive, more withdrawn, and I became more afraid. It was a Saturday afternoon when I finally decided to look through his things. He was in the shower and his phone was on the bedside table. My heart pounded in my chest as I picked it up, hands shaking. I knew the passcode. He had not changed that, at least. As I scrolled through his messages, my worst fears were confirmed. There she was. Her name was Emma. The texts between them were not explicit, but they were enough. There were plans to meet, mentions of how much they missed each other. One message in particular made my stomach drop. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." The room spun, and I sat down on the edge of the bed, struggling to breathe. I felt like I had been punched in the chest, the air knocked out of me. I stared at the screen, reading and rereading the words, hoping they would somehow change, that this was all a mistake. But they did not. This was real. This was happening. I confronted him that evening. I waited until we were both sitting at the dinner table, the silence between us thicker than usual. I could not hold it in any longer. "Who is Emma?" I asked, my voice trembling. He froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. For a moment he did not say anything. Then he put the fork down slowly and looked at me. His eyes were cold, harder than I had ever seen them. "She's just a friend," he said. "You are overreacting." "A friend?" I could barely keep my voice steady. "I saw the messages. You told her last night was amazing." He stared at me, his jaw clenched. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked, my voice rising. "Because it looks like you're sleeping with her." For a long moment he said nothing. The silence stretched between us, suffocating. Then, finally, he spoke. "It's complicated," he said, his voice low. My heart shattered. I had suspected it for months, but hearing him say it out loud was like a knife to the chest. I pushed my plate away, unable to eat, unable to think. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "A few months," he admitted. It did not mean anything, it was just something that happened. "Something that happened?" I echoed, disbelief washing over me. "You do not just accidentally fall into bed with someone. You chose this. You chose to betray me." He did not deny it. He just sat there, staring at the table, his face expressionless. I stood up, my legs shaking. "I trusted you," I said, tears blurring my vision. "I loved you." He finally looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. But it was too late. The damage was done. As I walked out of the room, I realized something. This was not just about Emma. This was about everything. The distance, the lies, the way he had slowly pushed me out of his life. He had been cheating on me long before he met her. He had been cheating on me with his silence, with his indifference, with every excuse he had made to avoid being close to me. In the days that followed, I packed my things and left. The house we had built together, the life we had shared, felt hollow now. As I closed the door behind me, I knew that I was leaving more than just a broken marriage. I was leaving behind the version of myself who had trusted so completely, who had believed in forever. And as I walked away, I realized that the distance between us had been there long before Emma came into the picture. She was just the final straw. The truth was, we had lost each other long ago. And now I was finally ready to face it.